discussion is, please.
India, the mother of democracy. I will tell everything about it. Very briefly, I will tell. So, I think now, if, sir, you agree, can we start now? I think
Yes,
Mr. Shreshtha can join. Okay.
in the meantime, Registrar will join.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, this is a warm welcome from Ek Bharat Shreshtha Bharat team of Mizoram University, Aizawl. With great pleasure, I announce that UGC New Delhi, Minister of Education, yes, welcome Prof Lalnundanga, our Registrar, our guest of honor. Welcome, sir. So,
yes, sir.
Today we are having this particular webinar because UGC has selected Mizoram University as one of the universities to go for this particular activity. India, the mother of democracy, and Professor Varsha Shirgaonkar, esteemed professor and head formerly with SNDT Women's University, Mumbai, as the guest speaker, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Mizoram University, Prof Pravakar Rath, as the chief guest, Prof Lalnundanga, Registrar, Mizoram University, as guest of honor. And today, the format will be like this. I'll give very brief introduction, followed by a brief talk and inauguration speech by Professor Rath, our VC. Then our registrar, sir, Professor Lalnundanga will speak. And then the guest speaker, Professor Varsha, will speak. If there are questions, we will take up. Otherwise, a word of thanks. So let me start with this. UGC New Delhi and Ministry of Education, Government of India, have written to us last week that Mizoram University has been selected as one of the universities to organize this meeting, India, the mother of democracy. Actually, this is a project by Indian Council of Historical Research, and they have identified 15 sub-themes or topics, out of which Madam Professor Varsha talks about one theme, but the entire project is about India from the traditional to the modern day in history, culture, ethnography, our heritage. Everywhere we have multiculturalism, pluralism as the basis of democracy. The whole world has to have a real look at India from this perspective. This is actually a project to revisit, reinvent our history, and with that we reinvent the history of democracy. And here, very briefly, I will talk about our today's chief guest, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Mizoram University, Professor Pravakar Rath. He is the senior most professor of our university who has taken over the charge of Vice Chancellor, Mizoram University only a couple of days back. He is the senior professor in the Department of Library and Information Science, a very erudite scholar, writer, research guide, widely traveled person. He was Fulbright scholar in US. He attended IGSS in UK, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and many other countries. A host of scholars have got their PhD degree under the guidance of Professor Rath. He has visited large number of universities in the country in connection with library, professional and library and information science research, education, documentation and publication. Invited by many universities for their confidential assignments, including their selection. He has been a national expert in many committees. And one small anecdote, Professor Rath is the only person in the country perhaps was invited almost all the library professionals and library professors to Mizoram University within 20 years of his stay here. with these few words, I welcome Professor Rath as the chief guest of this particular webinar. Then coming to our registrar, he is one of the youngest senior professor of our university, our honorable registrar. He has been the director IQAC, director HRDC. He has been in many posts in the country, very unassuming, very down to earth, and very dedicated person, and ever smiling person, Prof Lalnundanga. And he has, to his credit, so many PhD scholars. He guided so many activities wherever we feel like that these people, whenever we feel like that these people.
Sir, is there some hacking?
Yeah, there are some hacking. I have removed. Then there are many activities in which Prof. Lalnundanga is a part of us, and whenever we invite him for any activity, he speaks very little, but he is a workaholic. And now coming to our today's guest speaker, Professor Varsha Shirgaonkar. She has been a professor of history in SNDT Women University in Mumbai, and she is the national expert in history, and in many of the committees she is a member. She is in 2 of the central universities as the visitors nominee. She is an expert in medieval and modern India, modern Indian history, and the heritage of Mumbai. And Madam Varsha Shirgaonkar, she has authored many books, articles, and she has been one of the few historians who is engaged in reinventing, revisiting Indian history. And that is the way we are coming into this particular topic, India, the mother of democracy, and we are revisiting Indian history. With these few words about our guest, I welcome all the guests, my friends in Ek Bharat Shreshtha Bharat team of Mizoram University, and also the members of Ek Bharat Shreshtha Bharat team of Mahatma Gandhi Central University, Motihari, Bihar, our partner university in EBSB. So with these few words, I again welcome all the participants and request our honorable chief guest, Professor Rath, to speak a few words to inaugurate this webinar. Professor Rath, please.
Thank you, Professor Pathi. Madam Professor Varsha from SNDT, very well-known, prestigious, reputed university, and my colleague, Registrar of Mizoram University, Professor Lalnundanga, dear participants and other resource persons, those who are watching this particular program. Well, India is known for its democracy. Wherever our dignitaries goes outside, they always talk about India and how such a huge country maintaining democracy right from the lower level to the highest level. It is no unity in diversity. No, for the government is for the people, by the people, of the people, and election and elected members to the parliament, to Rajya Sabha, all these things, that has made our country so much of a democratic. Our parliamentary form of government is again another most accepted and very popular for India's sake. So therefore, I am not the expert in this particular field or subject to say more, although I had this political science as in those days, one was honors BA graduation, one was honors, another is pass. So political science was passed. That is why in those days the Indian constitution system, mostly borrowed by the British system, because they ruled the country for a long time. But one thing is that India is no doubt the mother of democracy, and something is coming. So that is why the reputation and the prominence of our country all over the world is known for its democratic setup, the Constitution of India, and the other activities, the government setup that has made us more democratic. Democratic. That is why we say that India is the only country where all these democratic principles take place, and we are proud of that. And with these things, I do not to take much time on the subject and the topic. Therefore, now I request our Professor Pathi, who is very keen in organizing such type of programs in his department, mostly related to political science and public administration, many aspects, and he is popular in his own subject. He is an expert in his own subject. That's why I thank Professor Pathi, who is the coordinator of this program, and I thank Madam Varsha. In spite of his other schedules, Madam could be available for this program. On behalf of Mizoram University, I express my sincere gratitude to Madam, and of course, our colleague Professor Lalnundanga is always available for any academic program. Being a teacher, being a professor, being a researcher, he is always available for such type of programs. So thank you very much. Now I hand over to Professor Pathi.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Prof Lalnundanga, our registrar, to speak a few words as the guest of honor today, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Sir Professor Pathi, and Honorable Chief Guest, our Vice Chancellor, and Honorable Guest Speaker, this Professor Varsha. So we are very glad to have you here in the platform of Mizoram University. So as the Chairman has already highlighted, since I'm having a background of science, I don't have much knowledge about the history, but I really do believe in history that could make changes. Because even if we studied about sciences, so we have been looking whatever the history has spelled out. So in those days, so based on that, so the new inventories, the new discoveries, the new invention has come. So what we are talking about nowadays is the traditional knowledge system. So while I'm working, being in the forestry, I'm mainly working on these medicinal plants. So all the new inventories is coming from the history, the knowledge the people have had. Traditionally, they have practices. So that is why, so the topic that we have had today, I really, really expected that. So this will be a very great, lectures that we'll be having through our guest speaker is Madam Varsha. So hopefully that how India become the mother of democracy. So hopefully that will encourage. So whoever is listening, though the participants may not be more at this time, but we have recorded, so that has to be, telecast, and then so for the student as well as the teachers. So with that, so I welcome once again this Madam Varsha for being with us today, and I thank you, the chairman. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now it's a pleasure to invite Madam Professor Varsha Shirgaonkar to speak whatever she feels like on the general theme and the sub-theme she can choose. So, Madam, time is yours. If you want, you can go for PPT presentation or you can talk. The choice is yours, ma'am. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, sure. You can share because now you are part of it. You can share. Please share.
No, can you see it?
No.
You have to give that from your end, then I will add my PPT there.
I think you click on that arrow mark, then you can put there your near that 3 dots near the arrow mark. You can present possible.
Activities.
Yeah, present now. You can near that hand symbol. There is one arrow mark up. You can present there. You can present there. Yes.
Yeah, your entire screen. Okay.
Yeah, you can present there. You can present. Please try. You can present. But you are also part of it, so you can present.
Before that, you have to open your file.
Madam, in the desktop,
Yeah,
open
it's
the
open.
file.
Open already.
Okay, okay.
Then you present. Yeah.
Yeah, I have opened. Yeah.
Then now you present. You
Then
can click there and present. Just in case you find issue, yeah, you can now do.
yeah,
Yes,
I think I'm.
you can do that. Now you can do that. Now you share, you start sharing.
No, how is it? It's
You
not
should
coming.
start sharing. You click on, then you
Yeah.
share. You
Huh?
click on that sharing, it will come.
Just
Ignore
1 minute.
that stuff.
I'll just call somebody from home.
Yeah. Please call. No issue. You can call them. We will edit it. Don't worry, man. You call someone. We can wait. Yeah. Please call someone. Yeah. You try.
ओपन करने से
हाँ, open the है.
Yes. Coming. Now it is coming.
Is it coming?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. It's coming. It's coming.
Can you see it now?
Yeah. Yes.
हाइड
Yes.
Okay, it's coming, right?
Yeah, it's coming. Please continue. Then go on sliding down and you can go on talking. Yeah.
Hello, can you?
Yes.
Can you hear
Please.
me?
Yes. Please continue.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Good afternoon, Chief Guest Professor Pravakar Rath, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Mizoram University. Guest of Honor Professor Lalnundanga, Registrar, Mizoram University. Chairman Professor Srinibas Pathi, Professor of Public Administration and Convener Team, EBSB, Mizoram University. And my friends who are lovers of Indian history and culture, I would say. I remember at one particular function, we had invited one guest, and the audience was like this only, about 6 and 7. So we were just asking him whether he was comfortable with that kind of audience. So he was coming from States, and he said in US also we have got at times some similar experience. So even if 3 are there, that's fine. So jokes apart, at the outset, I would like to thank Ministry of Education, Government of India for having this project, Ek Bharat Shreshtha Bharat, and UGC also for this brilliant initiative of reaching all of us to various universities in India. I'm indeed very happy with the chairperson, Raghuvendra Tanwar, and member secretary, Professor Umesh Kadam of Indian Council of Historical Research for their insight to undertake this intellectual project on Indian history titled India, Mother of Democracy. The conceptual framework of this particular project by Dr. Tanwar is published today in Times of India on page number 14. I'm sure you also will be getting, or you might have got also, this particular coverage appearing in Times of India. There he has explained the objectives of this particular project And the main objective is to place history of India in proper perspective by way of exploring the so far unexplored sources that were either kept aside uh, because of negligence or deliberately. And I would say that we all get a very good opportunity now to explore these sources, which are very many. And the task before the historians is to understand these sources, to investigate these sources, which are hidden in the culture of India. Uh, any historical narrative, according to me, can't be completed without the three-dimensional view. That is India's cultural development. We have to understand what were the different religious undercurrents in the contemporary times and how were the beliefs and customs of the people. We can't just say that democracy or republican form of government, these were the political systems. Political systems, fine, but we can't rampantly use these terms with regards to India, because in India, the governments, right from ancient times, have evolved in a very, very multi dimensional way. That is the concept of Janapada, the concept of social welfare, which is talked in Kautilya's Arthashastra and then which is carried forward later. How it was carried forward, in what way, and how the different governments took shape, all that we need to properly uh, put in the historical perspective. Now, we all know the famous definition of democracy as rightly narrated just now by the Honorable Vice Chancellor. That is, democracy is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. If we understand the first two, that is, of the people, by the people, these two would tell us about the formation of government, that, you know, the techniques of the formation of government or the processes. But for the people, this particular concept, which Abraham Lincoln also speaks about, is very, very close to what Indian governments, right from ancient times, have shown. That is the concept of social welfare. No government can really succeed without the social will taken into consideration. A glance at uh, our own systems shows that we had two kinds of states, Janapada and Rajya, right from Vedic times. If we talk about democracy, we can say that Sabha, Samiti, these bodies of Vedic times, they were much, much before the Greek system of democracy, direct democracy. We generally talk about direct democracy, indirect democracy, whenever we are discussing democracy and republican governments. We take the Western view, but we forget that in India also we had such systems in existence and in proper shape. Naturally, what happened was that when the government started, when the population started expanding, then naturally they required some kind of governors, maybe in a stricter way. But at the same time, it is very, very important to know that village communities and the panchayat systems in India, they have been very alive despite different political disturbances. Now, while trying to understand the village community systems and their entire existence, I found one very interesting statement by Sir Malcolm Darling, who was an ICS, an Assistant Commissioner of Punjab in 1904. And he was also the Financial Commissioner of the same province in 1936. Now, he said that in India, the sovereign power resides in the people and is exercised by them through the duly elected representatives. It's very interesting to note that he wrote this article, The Indian Village and Democracy, in that Journal of the Royal Society of Arts in 1943. That means little before he went back to his native place, that is England. He wanted to give this kind of information about the village community system. I remember while studying Maratha history also, I came across some such statements by Sir John Malcolm, who was the first governor of Bombay Presidency. So it is very interesting to note that the British ICS officers also had recorded their opinions about the village communities and the sovereignty of the people here. So democracy in totality, in its literal sense, we can't apply to India, but we have to understand these various undercurrents which were there in our systems. Whosoever might have been the king, village community, panchayat system always was very supreme. It is with this idea that we have to understand the Sanskrit texts, different Sanskrit texts on Hindu polity. And in that we will find there is a kind of blend of monarchical and republican ideas. In Arthashastra of Kautilya, we have got very, very prominent sentence. Praja sukhe sukham radnyaha. Prajanam cha hite hitam. So it means that the king must seek his own happiness in the happiness of the praja, the subjects. Whatever is the hita, welfare of the praja or the subjects, that is actually his hita. Kautilya, in fact, further guards the rulers, saying that if a ruler fails in his duties towards the praja sukham, what will happen? He will have to face the prakruti kopa or insurrection of the subjects. The subjects will rise against him and even remove him. And if this is not done, then it would be the control of Ari, that is the enemy. We have got a very glaring example of one particular king called Vena. In Manusmriti, it has been stated that he was literally removed from his throne because he had become very despotic and he had become very self-centered and selfish. So it means that even though the king was there for the namesake as the head of the administration, the real power vested with the subjects. And that is why I always say that you can't just have the labels, you see, in a very sweeping way, like democracy or republic. If there was kingship in India, no, then it has to be monarchy. No democracy, absolutely. You can't say that. So we have to actually change the narrative which has been there throughout all these years. We have to understand these in a very different manner. According to K.P. Jaiswal, who is an authority on Hindu polity, he says that ruler actually constitutionally was a servant, while morally he was expected to be a master. So that means he had to serve the people, and morally he had to show as to how he could be the example to be evaluated by the people and followed by the people. Now, it is in this context. See, let me tell you here that even today's Times of India, Raghubendra Tanwar, the chairman of ICHR, has said that there are 30 scholars who have contributed to this volume. Different scholars have highlighted these concepts, so I do not want to go into the details. My contribution has been on the Kakatiyas of Warangal, about which I'll be speaking. But before that, I want to tell you here that we should understand which were the Sanskrit texts in medieval India, on the basis of which also the contemporary kings might have taken some kind of indications. So we have got one particular text called Niti Vakyamrut in Sanskrit, and that was by a Jain scholar called Somadeva Suri. In Niti Vakyamrut, we can say that there is a concept of welfare state, and the ruler has been portrayed as a constitutional monarch and not as a despot. Whatever rules and regulations he lays down, that is actually for the benefit of the society. And then another particular text which I referred to was Rajaniti Ratnakar of another writer, Sanskrit writer called Chandeshwar. Interestingly, we can find out that he was a contemporary of the Kakatiyas in 14th century CE. Now, in one slide, I'm taking Somdeva Suri's Niti Vakyamrut. Some details I'm giving here. He was a Jain scholar and wrote the work at the request of the Gurjara Pratihara king, Mahendrapala II of Kanauj, who was ruling in the mid-10th century CE. While reading his work, we find that there were many ideas in continuation with Kautilya's Arthashastra. But still, the term Niti, which he uses this in the context of political wisdom and that also moral conduct. Unlike the political economy of Kautilya, see, Artha Shastra would mean literally political economy. But Somadeva's work is a book of good counsels for the kings. So he has given this particular kind of discourse in order to help the kings and the young princes. Somadeva's emphasis is on performing dharma or the right action because of the constant rift between right and wrong in political life in particular and human life in general. See, we have to understand that in India, right from ancient times till the arrival of the British, there were different sects, different religions. Obviously, the communities following these different rites and rituals, religions, sects, they already had their own ideas about governance. When a particular person or a group of people became the leaders, they couldn't leave behind these beliefs and customs, of which they were a part and parcel. Obviously, their political ideas also reflect the dharma principles. And it is here that I feel, when we understand the mode of governance, the mode of administration, we have to understand these beliefs and customs. So, these terms like democracy, republic, these in Indian context are to be undertaken from cultural context more so than hard, dry kind of political or administrative sense. We must understand these cultural kind of give and takes which were there in the society. His 19th chapter is Janapada Samuddesha. And in this, he has given clearly the definitions of Janapada, Rashtra, and Desha. He has given also the scope of Janapada. And he says that Janapada actually was the concept which was ruling. So Rashtra, Desha, Desha is in the sense of the terrain which was under the king. But at the same time, Janapada was quite powerful. Now, you see, this particular work which I am just describing is of mid 10th century CE. That means even at that time, we will find that village community was very strong. The same observation, as we have seen, was of the ICS officers also. Chandeshwara's Rajaniti Ratnakar, which is a book on Hindu polity during the medieval period, also caught my attention when I was preparing something on the Kakatiyas. Because Chandeshwar, it has been said, came in contact with the Yadavas. Yadavas at times were the feudatories of Kakatiyas of Warangal. Now you see, even though Chandeshwar was from Mithila, as the second point here shows, he was under the last king Hari Singh Dev of Karnataka dynasty of Mithila in 14th century CE. My point is that even though he was in Mithila, whatever he must have written also must have traveled to Yadavas as well as the Kakatiyas. Why? Because it is amazing to see that he says a sovereign could be of any caste. Actually, I'm just giving the second last point here of more importance according to me. By that time, already so much on Islamic invasion had happened that it was pointless to say that the king must be from the Kshatriya clan only and the castes generated out of Kshatriya. His is a very, very practical kind of philosophy, I would say. Another particular point is that there was a council of ministers, and it has been said that his own uncle was heading this council of ministers when the predecessor of Hari Singh Dev, his ruler, the predecessor of him was Shakti Singh, when he became very autocratic, despotic. These ministers themselves decided to limit him and take the power in their hands. So I indicate here that these kinds of checks and balances on the kings did exist, and they couldn't become the despots. So you see, when we read the work like Oriental Despotism, we have to understand, of course, he has not taken India in that particular zone, but India had its own specialities, and we should really find out what are these specialities. So one should read the texts which were there in medieval times, and one has to apply this kind of information which we get from the text to the contemporary dynasties. It is again very interesting when he says at one particular point that Praja, that is the subjects, it is Vishnu, and that Praja should be kept happy. I'll just read, Iti sarva praja Vishnum sakshinam Shravayen Muhu. Now, it's very interesting why he calls them Vishnu. Vishnu, of course, is the name of God, but at the same time, according to me, if we understand Trinity, then Vishnu is the principle of maintenance of the world. So, if the Praja is kept happy, then kingdom also will be maintained. So this was one particular text, and my point of view will be that such texts should be explored. They should be studied properly in the context of the contemporary history. Now, my contribution to the volume is on the Kakatiyas of Warangal, Republican leanings of the Kakatiyas of Warangal as gleaned through epigraphical and literary sources. This is the particular map from 1230 to 1323 because this period was the prime period of the Kakatiyas, starting from Ganpati Deva, the father of Rudramma Devi, who virtually became the queen during his tenure only. In his last days, he had put her as the heir apparent. And then finally, in 1323, we have the decline of the Kakatiya kingdom, the last ruler being Pratap Rudradev II. It has been said by some scholars that in 1323, he lost the kingdom, but still he continued to be a feudatory of the Muslims. Like we have got Ulugh Khan, who subsequently became Muhammad bin Tughlaq. But before that, there were about 8 very ferocious attacks by Malik Kafur on his kingdom. This arrow which is shown here is for Warangal, the capital city. And this is the map of the modern Telangana. As we know that we have got Telangana as a separate state. As I just narrated, gradual rise of the Kakatiyas of Warangal was during the dominion of Chalukyas of Kalyani from 10th century CE. The name Kakatiya is either from Kakatipur, that is, since the kings bore the title Kakati Vallabha, or because of their worship of a goddess called Kakatiyamma. Now, it's very important to know that the Kakatiyas were, one can say today, in today's term, sons of the soil. That is, they were not from any royal family. No inscription gives us information. But rather, they were having a very humble background socially. Important rulers were Rudradev, known as Pratap Rudradev first in 12th century CE. Then he led the foundation for the capital city, Warangal, of which we have just seen in the map. Then thereafter, his nephew Ganpati Deva was a powerful ruler, and he ruled till 1262 CE. And as I mentioned earlier, Rudra Mahadevi or Rudraamba or Rudramma Devi, his daughter, she then ruled till 1289, and the last ruler was Pratap Rudradev, the grandson of Rudramma Devi, who ruled till 1323. Now, we are not actually interested in the political history because there are quite a few annexations and their relationships with the contemporary dynasties like Yadavas, Western Gangas, and Okay. My main point is what gleanings we have through the contemporary inscriptions. Now, the one finds it quite interesting that there is no autocratic rule. The inscriptions may give the genealogy of the kings, some of the inscriptions. But the inscriptions are by the respective governors. Many of them are in the names of the ministers. Not only the ministers, but an official under a particular minister or the servant of an official of such and such minister. There are many inscriptions in Telugu, and they are about the participation of people of different cadres in the welfare activities. So here I would say that the whole rule, monarchical rule, was diluted. The actual power of decision making was also in the hands of the ministers and their officials. Now here I will give, of course, when this article of mine will be published in the volume, definitely there is much more to be read about. But I will just say that an inscription in Telugu may help us to know how the ministers and officers of different cadres were trying their best to protect the subjects. It is on a slab set up in front of the temple of heroes. There is one particular temple of heroes, and you see there is one particular taluk, Palnad, which is considered to be the place of the heroes. And this particular inscription, which I found in Guntur district in 1315 CE. See, all these inscriptions are in Shake. We have to add 78, then we get the English year. It records a gift of land for the benefit of heroes, and the ruler mentioned in the area of Mahadevi Cherla is Devari Nainagaru. Now, he is actually not the ruler. He is the officer of a minister of the Kakatiya ruler. But he is mentioned as ruler. And he was the feudatory of Pratap Rudradev II. At times, you will find that the feudatories also could have their independence in setting up the inscriptions and in setting up the temples. So apparently, the Kakatiya kings never had that kind of dominating approach. The adjective for this ruler in the said inscription, if we translate it into English, is rescuer of the Kakatiya family. See, it is in 1315 CE. A little while ago, I said that Pratap Rudradev II, who lost his kingdom in 1323, had experienced 8 massive attacks of Malik Kafur, Alauddin's general. And one has to understand that the Kakatiya kingdom was having the best of the mines of the jewels. You know, all these Kolar, then you have got Golconda also. Kohinoor was born there. You know, that particular discussion we are now having presently also about Kohinoor. Please remember that most of these gems, they were from here. And one can understand the pain that in 8 attacks, they had to lose so much to the Muslim generals. But remember, even though this particular was a feudatory, the maker of this inscription, he is called rescuer of the Kakatiya family. It must be because of the regard that he had for the Kakatiya rulers, and the Kakatiya rulers' treatment to him also, the humane and very dignified treatment of dignity, which actually made him protect the Kakatiyas also. So this was just one example. Then it has been also pointed out that the Kakatiya rulers were knowing the working of the local civic bodies and corporate bodies called Samayas and Nakaras, and they showed willingness to accept their power. We have lot many inscriptions with regards to the construction of tanks, because we will find that this area being somewhat dry, there was necessity of the tank irrigation, and hence there was role of governors and officials and their subordinates towards the tank irrigation. There are some inscriptions with regards to the medical facilities provided by the Kakatiyas to the people. And again, the medical facilities, even though they were provided by the king, it is said that they were provided by the governors and others. But the king is informed. So this shows a kind of very transparent relationship between the Kakatiyas and their governors. Another particular point which is very significant with regards to the Kakatiyas is that because they themselves were from a non-Kshatriya background, I would put it, they allowed many communities to come to the forefront and have certain rights in the society. There is one particular inscription which I found in 1396-97 CE. See, by that time, the Kakatiya power had totally declined. There was a gap of about 60 years at least between the decline and this inscription. And this inscription, it is said that the local Acharya was reported a particular kind of facility given to a community called Badagulavaru. And I tried to find out who these Badagulavarus must be. And then, now I have to acknowledge here the help given by a research scholar in Mumbai called Nagamani. Okay, and I think she's there in the audience. She helped me with this particular kind of derivation. She said, Madam, please find out whether it is Vadagala. And interestingly, I could find that, see, there is a context of Vaishnavite scholars being honored by the Kakatiya rulers and all that. So then I tried to find out more information. And then I could find out that Ramanuja, the philosopher, in late 11th and say beginning of 12th century CE, he gave a particular philosophy. And that was not really liked by the people, though he was a Vaishnavite. After him, there were two sects like Vadagala and Tengala. Vadagala was said to be from north. There is a clear indication in that particular inscription that they were from north. And they were honored by the Kakatiyas. But after the Kakatiyas, certain orthodox sections revolted against this kind of more honorable position given to the Vadagalas. And then I could understand that this Badagulavaru, the particular word which comes in the inscription, must be Vadagala. Now, this is one small example which I have given here as to how we have to understand monarchies from cultural contexts and how different sects in the contemporary times also impacted upon the rules of the rulers. Another particular community that I came across through the inscriptions is Bhat Raju, and they were the bards. There is more to it, like how certain feudatories of the Kakatiyas, they then started employing the Bhat Rajus, because the Bhat Rajus then lost the royal patronage after the Kakatiyas had declined. But it is very sad that after the Kakatiyas, these two communities which were given some importance, they lost the social status. So I repeat here that we have to understand the cultural context of the contemporary times. Another particular inscription which attracts our mind definitely is with regards to the policy of Kakatiya rulers of not forfeiting foreign ships, but imposition of custom duties. It was as if the rampant practice of any ruler, I'm not saying about Indian rulers only, but wherever there was a foreign ship in the waters of the respective ruler, then they would seize the ship, take away all the riches, kill these merchant traders, or just send them without a penny. But Kakatiya rulers were quite humane and very different in their approach. The inscription of Ganpati Deva in Guntur district, this is in the year 1244-45, and it is called Abhaya Shasanam. That is, it is assuring safety to whom? To the ships of the foreigners. And this particular Telugu portion, which is translated into English, it gives us information that the Kakatiyas had levied the custom duties and they were not forfeiting their ships. And the custom duty was like the citizens of this country. So the foreigners were quite happy with the Kakatiyas. Now, we have to see in history, we take internal evidence and external evidence. Internal evidence is okay from the inscriptions and all that. But what is the external evidence as to how the Kakatiyas were? That is provided by the Venetian traveler called Marco Polo. In his records, he says, and I can assure you that during all that space of 40 years, she had administered her realm as well as ever her husband did. Now, you see, he doesn't quote the name of the queen. But we have to understand, because he speaks about one particular area. He calls it Mutfili. Actually, this is Motupallu. This particular place, Motupalle village. So when we are reading the foreign travelogues, we have to really understand about which area they were talking about. So we have to see the inscriptions. We have to compare the information from the inscriptions with the foreign travelogues. So here I would again say that it is very necessary for the researchers, young researchers especially, to build history in this particular manner. Just saying that this foreign traveler has written this way, it will not do anything. We have to compare, we have to investigate the history in its proper perspective. Now, I have given instances of two Sanskrit works earlier. There was one contemporary Sanskrit work of Kakatiyas, and that was written by Vidyanath, the court poet of Pratap Rudradev II. Interestingly, this work is not on history, but on Alankar Shastra or poetics. But it is very important to know that this can serve as the source material also for Pratap Rudradev's second, the Kakatiya ruler. Because while giving examples in poetics, he chooses the capital city of Pratap Rudradev II, his master, Pratap Rudradev II himself, and by, he also gives us information about the relations of the Kakatiya rulers with their feudatories. One of the feudatories that I mentioned even earlier, they were Yadavas of Devgiri. Other rulers were also of Kalinga. Godavari region was the bone of contention between the Yadavas of Devgiri and Kakatiyas of Warangal. But when they obtained, Kakatiyas obtained Godavari region, we will find there is a very interesting sentence there in Sanskrit. He says that the Kakati Viras and the Mantris, they found this Godavari region to be of utmost happiness because the nature there was very good. So it is so interesting to note that even in his work, Vidyanath knowingly, unknowingly has shown as to how the Kakatiya ruler was at the background. But the mantris and the soldiers, the officials, they were actually the decision makers at times. It was for them that the territorial expansion was undertaken, etc. And another particular point with regards to dharma is that the concept of trilinga or three lingas, it has been expanded here. I need not expand it here and tell you in detail because already there was an article published by me on this particular text. But they were the worshippers of Lord Shiva, and hence we have got instances of the construction of Shiva temples, which even Vidyanatha gives us. Another particular point with regards to the social welfare concept, which was undertaken by Pratap Rudradev II, was that he says that his master was lokottareshu karyeshu prayatna utsaha, means he was enthusiastic in the efforts towards the welfare activities. And these welfare activities were with regards to Vapi Kupa Tadag, that is prominently the digging of tanks, wells, and water reservoirs. The point which I think I explained even earlier, that most of the inscriptions are on the opening of tanks. Every temple will have a water body. You will find that I'm just giving some guidelines here for research towards the end of my lecture. That is why my some sort of piece of advice, because I think I had that right being senior in this teaching and research field. Search the contemporary sources while writing and interpreting history, archaeological and literary. Vernacular sources to be seen as far as possible. The contemporary cultural traditions, such as sects, secular and religious structures, beliefs, and customs of the people to be taken into consideration. And then to undertake an approach of a cultural researcher, something like that of an analyst historiographer. Annals historiography is one particular school of thought, especially for the interpretation of Indian history. An approach of total history is to be undertaken on account of the richness of the different languages and cultures of India. Here again, I would like to give one example, which I possibly missed out in way of my speech. Uh, some of you must be knowing that Ramappa Temple is the first temple to get the World Heritage Tag in Telangana. It is very interesting to note that it is known after Ramappa, the sculptor or the architect. It was actually built by a minister, Racherla, but you will find that this became known as Ramappa Temple. Now, all these small things add up to history. We have to understand who that Ramappa was. So that is why I always feel that we must have the approach of cultural history while interpreting the history. You can't very dryly interpret Indian monarchies as monarchies alone without any democracy or republican state. No, you can't do that. What India was all these years before the British came was a blend of social welfare, benevolent monarchy, and the continuation of cultural traditions of India. On this note, I would like to end, but at the end of that, I would also say that my talk, in my say presentation, I have attached select bibliography also, if in case that is of help to the further researchers. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Varsha Shirgaonkar. We are so happy to listen to you, your enlightened talk. And we get that even in this part of the
Thank you.
country, in Mizoram, oral history, oral tradition is being explored to enrich history of Mizoram, of Northeast, and that of India. And we feel that your talk will inspire our researchers in history and ethnography to talk about more and also to explore into cultural history. And you rightly pointed out that all kings and monarchs are not despotic. Decentralized decision making, welfare of the people, religion, philosophy, social customs, they need to be taken into account when we talk about history. And inscriptions, books, and writings of India must be consulted when we rewrite or revisit Indian history. Ma'am, if you have time,
Yeah.
ma'am, can you stop sharing? You just click on stop sharing or stop presenting, then it will go.
Uh,
Stop presenting or stop
Oh,
sharing.
yeah.
Professor Pathi,
Yes,
Has
uh,
it
yes,
gone? Yeah. Yeah.
with your permission and madam's permission, I have
yes, sir.
another
Yeah.
engagement. Can I leave?
Yes. Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can leave. You can leave. We have one or two queries. So we thank
I
Honorable
was I
VC.
was I was watching and listening madam's
Yeah,
presentation. It was excellent.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. You can, and Honorable Registrar is here. We will try to complete very soon. Ma'am, one or two questions can we take up? One or two questions I got from the participant. Can we take up one or two questions? Very, very brief questions. Number one, how to fulfill the deficiency distortion in Indian history? What should be done? In your opinion, what should be done to fill the gap in Indian history, the distortions per se? Very briefly, you can
Uh,
respond to this.
see, somehow I'm not getting it. It's breaking in between.
No, no. The question
Can
is,
you put it in
how?
the chat
Yeah, yeah,
box?
yeah. No, no. How can we fill the gap in the deficiencies
No,
in
no, it's
Indian
breaking.
history?
It's breaking.
It's breaking. So should I
Yeah.
write down?
Ha, please, if you can.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, you can look at it now.
How to fill the gaps in history, Indian history.
Yeah.
Okay. You see, always there is this particular question, but what I feel, if we try to even archive the oral sources, you see, there is much more to it, in the sense that we may try to put that kind of sequential order in many areas. I would say, like, you see, there are many parts of India where the history of that particular area is not written till now. Like, for example, now I'm speaking on the platform of your university, and many of the areas of Northeast, there the history needs to be properly written. Maybe there are oral sources, but these oral sources are not totally archived, and that is why towards the end of my presentation I said that we must have a kind of analyst historiographical approach, where collection of the oral sources, even for that matter, I would say that there are myths also may be collected together, and cultural kind of interpretation is very necessary while writing history. This is what I feel. And these gaps then could be somewhat, cemented. This is my approach to it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. One
Like,
more
there
question will take. Yeah, thank you. Next question,
yeah.
please. Please look at next question.
What needs to be done to enrich Indian democracy? Now, this is a very large kind of question, I would say. But again, we may point out to our cultural heritage, and whatever heritage we are having. I'm not talking about only the structural heritage, I'm talking about the intangible heritage as well. The heritage of our folk songs, beliefs, customs, that needs to be preserved. We talked about, like, for example, I was, you see, convener of skill sector culture under AICT some years back. I worked on that. We designed about 49 courses, in which we have highlighted also on endangered languages. There are quite a few languages which today are on the brink of getting lost. But we must have, their archives, and then maybe, because see, democracy is not just the political system. Democracy is, according to me, the study of different communities, collection of different communities, their contribution to culture. And if we want to really enrich our democracy, then we must preserve our heritage. This is what I feel personally.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Now, I think it's time to say thank you. So, Ajay, a word of thanks on behalf of my university, the organizer, the Ek Bharat Shreshtha Bharat team. I propose hearty word of thanks to Professor Pravakar Rath, Hon'ble VC, Professor Lalnundanga, Honorable Registrar, Mizoram University, Professor Madam Varsha Shirgaonkar, esteemed guest speaker, the participants, our friends in Ek Bharat Shreshtha Bharat team in Motihari, Bihar, Mahatma Gandhi Central University, and all those who have helped us to make this webinar, including UGC and Ministry of Education, Government of India. Thank you all. Namaskar. Bye.
Thank you.
With this, we end this webinar. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, madam.